Hello, and welcome to another video. In this video, we're going over Infiltration Shadow. We are running May Cause Injury, which is the tactical for AoE discharge. We're running Devastating Relic and the Mastery Relic. And then we're running Shadowcraft and Stimulated. We're running mostly Mastery Augments and no critical. The main reason we're doing no critical is just to full send the ideal. And maxing out our Mastery the most we can to increase our base damage. Mastery also increases our crit hit chance, so that is relatively useful. And then we're also taking the critical hit chance node in our talents. Now, I wouldn't recommend this to anybody. Obviously, if you don't have the APM for it, I don't recommend trying it at all. And also, if you just don't like the durability of deception, probably avoid this because it's not going to make it really any better. Now, if you are experienced with it and you're just looking for new things to try, this can be a lot of fun. Obviously, just playing an actual build with actual crit and getting some crit hit damage, it will be just better in almost every way possible. First thing I want to get into, obviously, is that this kind of like emphasizes the old rotation where you would prioritize discharge more. Before Reaping Strike existed, we were able to do triple discharge. I still have videos on that, and I most definitely miss that. But basically how that works is that you're constantly just spamming to try to get your discharge up as much as you can. So it's a lot of ball lightnings on cooldown, and using your procs so you can get discharge up. And obviously you have to use Lacerate or Voltaic Slash to proc your AoE discharge. So basically you're just spamming that over and over and over to try to get that up as much as you can, and a lot of your damage is just coming from that. And when we had the ability to do triple discharge, our Phantom Stride was off the global cooldown. They added it to the global cooldown and it was still bugged, it wasn't fixed, and a little bit afterwards they actually managed to fix it. But Hollow Traverse and Phantom Stride remained on the global cooldown. It would be nice to see a change to that, especially if it's only like adding it to a separate global cooldown like Shoulder Cannon. I would happily accept that because it would help the class feel more smooth to play. It would also just help with TA management for Operative. Overall, I really enjoy the tactical because it does allow it to be a little bit more of a team fighter than what it previously was. Obviously, Deception is not designed for team fighting. Its durability isn't really there. It has like some control, and then with this tactical, it has some AoE burst, which is pretty deadly. Obviously, with high alacrity, it's much less deadly, but let's say you're running crit hit damage because you actually have critical, and you go into your opener with Shadowcraft, you're hitting like 60 to 80k AoE discharge, and you can do that 3 times. That's pretty deadly, I would say. That's about 220k, if not more, damage per discharge. And also to keep in mind, that's not just that's not just the total overall damage for the discharge. Obviously, that's just on one target, so you could expect about 220k per target. Obviously, if they have ABDR, it's going to be less. And obviously, if they have defensive squaring, it's going to be even more or less. Or even more or less that. Even less, I don't know, man. Like, I'm getting my caffeine in. I gotta work here soon, so we're still waking up and we're chilling. But you kind of like get the ideal. Typically, when it comes to like sustained damage, if you guys don't really care for the AoE discharge, Double Cloak is really nice for burst damage using your Shadowcraft. Typically that's something I would run if I really want to kill somebody because it's a lot of burst and it's very hard to survive. And then like other alternatives is Awakened Flame. Awakened Flame is absolutely crazy damage wise for killing like any target. Having an extra dot just in general allows you to have a lot more pressure. And then there's the Reaping Strike one. This one allows you to basically hit really hard and have a really good sustained damage rotation. But other than that, there's not really anything else I would bother to take that is like really good. I know there's like something like really silly, like low slash applies trauma or something. Like, I don't know what they do with some of the tactical ideals that they come up with, but that's just, it's kind of reminds me of what was it for Marauder, like Comet Champion, I think it was, where you would like use your mad dash for like damage, like use your main escape or your main like disengage, re-engage ability or mobility ability in general, just for damage. That's just, you know, sometimes they have some interesting ideals. I don't think that they think it through. I think they just like, oh, that sounds cool, let's put this in the game. Sounds cool, but is it effective? That's a question they probably should have asked, but you know, it's whatever. Now getting into some other things outside of, you know, hey, maybe we put Stride on a separate global cooldown. We can talk about some other things like, okay, you're playing a squishy class, it has stealth. How can you kind of use this to avoid taking damage? I did get lucky with getting into a decent cleave game, which, by the way, I probably wouldn't even bother to play this again if it wasn't mentioned to me, which, by the way, thank you. I can't pronounce your name, but they know who they are. Normally, when I play something and I'm satisfied with it, like I had a really fun game or whatever, and I posted a video on it already, I usually try to take a break from it and find a different class to entertain myself with or like challenge myself with and make a video on that one. So I didn't have plans on revisiting Deception so soon, mostly because it's not that meta. Or it's not really in the meta, I guess you could even say. It's kind of not great. And playing something like this on something that's already like not amazing is just like, okay, we're really just full sending the ideal of a glass cannon here. And it's working because they don't really have much damage and they're being oppressed pretty hard because we have a lot more damage than they do. And also in general, as long as I'm not being actively attacked by a DPS, which I have tools to get away through mobility. So I have AoE force speed slow, that's 3-second force speed, and it slows for 75%. So for the most part, I'm always able to get away from somebody. And on top of that, I have, you know, low slash, electrocute, stealth, all these tools to get away from a DPS if a DPS is actually threatening me. On top of that, I could just kill them. There's only one DPS in this situation right now, and it's the guy that's kind of just walking around with guard, not really doing much with it. So it's not going to be every match that it's going to be like this, and sometimes you're just going to die no matter what. And in those situations, using Shadowcraft to just absolutely nuke people as fast as you can, die, rinse, repeat, is kind of like the whole concept of going high alacrity. Though it really makes a very small amount of difference. And higher crit would be probably better, because you'd get more damage out in those windows. Excuse me. So hopefully that didn't get picked up. When it comes to like hitting targets, right, when you're a really squishy class and you don't really want to deal with other people, you should really be mindful of where the DPS are and like track their cooldowns. So obviously hit them when they don't have their cooldowns, but it should be ideal for you to kind of like track where the healers are and other targets that can't really fend for themselves too well against you, and try to abuse them instead of trying to abuse somebody that can probably just take you out in a couple seconds. So like hitting something like AP, Carnage, like Rage Jug, probably don't want to be around those guys too much because they will like 3-shot you. It's not a fun time. Then also, as for like other builds that I want to try, Serenity is probably another one that I'll immediately jump into. It already feels like pretty smooth. Before I had logged out, I had like expected Serenity and like completely logged out. I was like, okay, this is the next thing. This will probably be pretty fun. Obviously, I don't really like the dot durations not being as long, but I guess it kind of works out, right? Because It's not like hard to reapply the dots. Then for maybe something else to try, I might go for probably something with Carnage. I'm not like completely sold on it though. We'll find out. If you guys have any suggestions, I'm more than down. I know there's other classes that are really good with pretty much no crit, or would work with no crit, that I simply just have not tried yet. Obviously there's some classes that can go high alacrity without really griefing their build. Those would be Arsenal, Carnage, and Lightning. So we're not really counting those. Those aren't really hurting themselves by going high alacrity. Though I would say classes that are not on my radar when it comes to high alacrity and low critical, like in general, would be not really any of the sniper specs. On engineering, it seems like it could be interesting, but in general, I just don't feel like it would be worth it, mostly because there's like a bit of a setup, and just using things a little bit faster can definitely cause you to run out of energy really fast. And energy is already somewhat of a problem with the spec, so probably wouldn't bother with that. But for marksmanship, I could probably see something working for marksmanship. Obviously, it would absolutely grief its single target damage, but for an AoE kind of like build, you could probably do something cool with it. Anyway, don't have much more to talk about, mostly just because there's not much to deception, and we also talked about it recently, so yeah, kind of running out of things to think about. I know for one thing too, I know some people, when it comes to like PvP, since I did just make a video about it now, I know that there's some people, especially in AV8s, that don't really want to fight, or they have like a misconception of what PvP actually is. And they're like, oh, why in these videos you're fighting people, just trying to kill people and whatnot the entire time? Why you never play objectives? It's not that I'm not playing objectives, I'm making it free for my team to play objectives. If you're able to keep majority of people for you, or you're able to oppress an entire enemy team, for the most part, it pretty much means the rest of your team, what are they doing? Are they competent players, or are they AFK? That's the question. Hopefully they're not AFK. So that means that they basically play like 5 versus 1, if at all anybody, to click a node. If 5 players cannot click a node when there's nobody there, there's a problem. So while I may not be directly playing the objective, I am attempting to make it easier for them. I can go to my node, but chances are we'll just clear them, we'll cap it, and they'll be fine. Or maybe we won't. It really just is, it's kind of like a toss-up, right? Sometimes it can, sometimes it won't. If you put pressure like on the other side, usually if people are competent, something's going to happen on one side or the other. And with that kind of like out of the way, objectives are interesting, but it's not really my interest or playstyle. I played a lot of objectives back in the day, and usually I would play as a off-node fighter or like a roamer to pretty much force number advantages pretty much constantly. That was literally my role. I would, like, let's say in Civil War, instead of going mid, which I could go mid if I wanted to, but most of the time they would want me to go to the side node and duel whoever was protecting their node. Chances are I could probably win, and if I couldn't win, the second time I come back, I can probably win at that point. As soon as that becomes like a potential or a reality, taking over that node is like incredibly easy, and then somebody can just come defend and I'll go attack the other node. It's just constant pressure to the point that you can maintain at least 2+ players on a side node for you at all times. So anytime you go attack node and there's at least 2+ players there to answer you, that means your team is going to have a much easier time fighting with a numbers advantage. So typically that's like the easiest way to explain that. Obviously there's other ways to play, like obviously joining the team fight. But typically team fighting is not always the most direct way to win, because you might either stalemate or maybe you don't have enough damage but you have enough healing. There's obviously a lot of problems with team fights sometimes, and it's usually a damage issue, and sometimes it is a healing issue too, because people don't use their defenses correctly, but also maybe the healers aren't as good. Anyways, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll catch you guys again sometime soon.